Rick, what do you make of Trump's response to this, coming right out of this hearing?
So I want to thank everybody.
First, a couple of quick fact checks. This is now veered into becoming a very political speech. A lot of the big talking points, just including a false claim that he closed the border where Biden didn't. But on the merits of the case, he also veered into some severe misinformation by saying falsely that the Biden White House is directing all of these legal cases. That is not the case. I think we've learned about the separations that are here, and the Biden White House has kept quite a bit of distance from all these cases. This emanated directly out of Colorado. I think he also is presuming that the Supreme Court will side with him, as our folks have analyzed, I think, correctly today. It does appear the court is leaning that way, but he's now using it as the political forum that in some ways he's entitled to. I mean, this is the former president speaking, and he is very much lashing back at a lot of the building wave of all these different legal cases against him.
Terry, one of the questions before the court is whether they can decide this issue broadly for all the states or whether this is a case-by-case issue. I want to play a clip of Justice Alito addressing that with former President Trump's attorney.
Possibility that other states would say, using their choice of law rules and their rules on collateral estoppel, that there's non-mutual collateral estoppel against former President Trump. And so the decision of the Colorado Supreme Court could effectively decide this question for many other states, perhaps all other states. Could it not lead to that consequence?
I don't think so, because Colorado law does not recognize non-mutual collateral estoppel, and I believe the preclusive effect of the decision would be determined by Colorado law rather than the law of another state. But I think your question, Justice Alito, gives rise to an even greater concern, because if this decision does not have preclusive effect in other lawsuits, it opens the possibility that a different factual record could be developed.
So, Terry, what happens if the Supreme Court decides something pertaining to Colorado, but then a case in a different state finds a different set of facts? For example, if one decides that Donald Trump did participate in insurrection and another finds that he didn't.
Right, well, they were clearly concerned about the possibility of chaos in the states around this issue. You already have states doing it differently, coming to different conclusions. I am honestly going to leave the issue of mutuality of collateral estoppel. I'm going to leave that estoppel to Kate Shaw. But what I can say, based on what we just heard from Justice Alito and Donald Trump's lawyer, is the concern on the court that they could be faced with it. They don't come down with a decision one way or another. The 14th Amendment can be applied in this way to Donald Trump or not. They're going to be confronted with that parade of horribles that Justice Alito just pointed out. Other states are going to follow suit. Other states might be compelled through litigation, that's what collateral estoppel is, to follow Colorado's action. And as a result, this could be a patchwork. This could be an unintended parade of consequences that no one wants. I think the court is looking for, sounded to me like the justices were looking for, a way to come together to decide this issue for once and for all.
Kate, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson also questioned Trump's attorney on whether they accept that the January 6th attack amounted to an insurrection. Let's listen to that moment.
The Colorado Supreme Court concluded that the violent attempts of the petitioner's supporters in this case to halt the count on January 6th qualified as an insurrection, as defined by Section 3, and I read your opening brief to accept that those events counted as an insurrection, but then your reply seemed to suggest that they were not. So what is your position as to that?
We never accepted or conceded in our opening brief that this was an insurrection. What we said in our opening brief was President Trump did not engage in any act that can plausibly be characterized as insurrection.
All right, so why would this not be an insurrection? What is your argument that it's not? Your reply brief says that it wasn't because I think you say it did not involve an organized attempt to overthrow the government. So
that's one of many reasons, but for an insurrection there needs to be an organized, concerted effort to overthrow the government of the United States through violence. And this
so the point is that a chaotic effort to overthrow the government is not an insurrection?
No, we didn't concede that it's an effort to overthrow the government either, Justice Jackson. Right? None of these criteria were met. This was a riot. It was not an insurrection. The events were shameful, criminal, violent, all of those things, but it did not qualify as insurrection as that term is used in Section 3.
Kate, how fine a line is Trump's attorney walking here? And does it matter that even his admission there that this was shameful and violent clashes with some of what his own client has said on social media and at speaking events?
I thought it was a striking moment, and it certainly may matter politically. As a legal matter, I'm not sure there's that much interest in really probing this question. I was, glad to see Justice Jackson brought it up because it is one of the key questions in the case. Was this an insurrection under the Constitution? Did Trump engage in it? And yet, I think that was one of about 2 exchanges that really went to this question, both was this an insurrection and was the process by which the Colorado trial court made its findings a sufficient process to satisfy the demands of the Constitution. So I don't think that, I imagine if Trump was watching the full 2.5 hours, I doubt he was happy with that response, but it seemed from the perspective of winning the case before the justices like a wise concession for Jonathan Mitchell, Trump's lawyer, to have made. And there were a couple of places where, interestingly, the justices who seemed sympathetic to Trump's arguments were trying to essentially guide Mitchell to making certain kinds of arguments, that the presidency isn't an office, that this early case, Griffin's case, kind of resolves this question of whether Congress needs to pass a statute before a state can disqualify someone. And he was a little resistant to taking some of those routes. I think he thought some of his arguments were stronger than others. But it did make me wonder whether, even if the justices mostly or all, maybe 7 or 8 or even 9 side with President Trump in this case, it may not be a case in which there's a single opinion they all agree on, because there are so many different arguments that were in play, and different justices seem drawn to different arguments along the way.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.